Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Caper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel and let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.
I'm going to sit down. You don't have to hold it too close.
Pardon?
You don't need to hold it really close. Hold it very close.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Kay, and I'm an alcoholic. It's terrible being so short, you know. They don't know what to do with you, whether to lift you up. I tried to talk him into letting me sit on his shoulders, but he wasn't ready to do that. So, anyway, I don't know whether I'm delighted to be at the convention. I guess it's better to say that than say I'm delighted to be up here. Before I go any further, what I'd like you to do is, and this is just a quick 2-minute thing, turn around and look at someone you haven't seen before and shake their hand and say, "My name is, and I am." Okay. Now you see that actually I could probably go home now, because if you said, "My name is, and I'm an alcoholic," we're off to the races on an AA program. And that's the important thing. So I guess I need to start from the beginning and tell you a little bit about what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. And most of my what it's like now and what happened is going to be a story of AA at conventions, because this is the important time, and this is the archival important time. We've, from the beginning, I wanted what you had, and I really was willing to go to any length to get it. Now, I didn't realize what any length meant, and I also didn't realize what I was going to be required to do before I was through, because of my need to be me. My drinking didn't start until I was 21, and it finished when I was 31. It's a short period of time. And just so you don't have to do a lot of figuring and humbling around, I just had my 52nd anniversary, and I have... Thank you. And I sobered up in 1953 at the age of 31, and I had only done those 10 years of drinking, but I had gone as far as I needed to go. I didn't have that first drink until I was out in Vancouver nursing, and I had grown up in an area where we really did a lot of small towns and villages on the prairies in Saskatchewan, and I had done a lot of community work. I was really interested in my church and the community events, and so I grew up with in the beginning with a group that were called LTL, Loyal Temperance Legion, part of the WCTU, Women's Christian Temperance Union. So I went to their meetings every week, raised my hand, and said, "I promise not to buy, drink, sell, nor give alcoholic liquors while I live. From all tobacco I'll abstain and never take God's name in vain." Sounded just great. And of course, every week you went and said this and listened to these stories about these terrible people who drank, and they get drinking and kill children, driving cars, and on and on and on, all the terrible things that we talk about when we sober up. And after I had that first drink, none of those things seemed to be very important at all. Every one of those vows I took, I knocked them off one by one and had a ball. And
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Caper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.
During my nursing, because my drinking started with my nursing, it started at the beginning of about my probationary term. And by the time I had finished, I really wanted to get out of there. I'd done enough damage. And I often say, if you had an uncle or brother, a grandfather, whatever, in the armed services in World War II, who was stationed out in Vancouver for any length of time, I'd like to make my amends now, because I haven't a clue who they were. There were too many blackouts. And eventually, I did come east. And while I was here, and I'm going to skip this large bits of this story because it's only the important part is what happened. I came to Toronto, and I had $5 in my pocket. And I looked in the phone book, and I found a nursing registry, and she said, come and see us. So I went over, and she said, well, yes, we have a job for you. And where do you live? And I said, I don't live anyplace. I just arrived in town. So she said, well, these people want you to stay there at night. But you'll have to have a place tonight. So there's a room down the street for $2. So that $5 lasted me till I got to my job. And when I worked very hard. I was a binge drinker. When I played hard. And so I went on to this job. And I continued working for that agency for a while. They had a man who came into a patient who would come into the Royal York Hotel, bombed out of his mind from Boston. His wife was a socialite. And he would come and stay there, call private duty nurses on, and wean him off on his bottle. And when he was sober, he'd go back again. So I came to, I received this man as a patient. And I had been there 2 or 3 different times for his different benders. And this one time, there was an article in the paper about a group of men in Toronto, and this would be the mid-40s. A group of men in Toronto who were being helped by priests and ministers, and they were staying together trying to find a solution to their drinking problem. And they were calling themselves Alcoholics Anonymous, and there was a phone number. So I showed him the article, and I said, would you be interested? You know, he had the problem. And he read it. He said, yes. I said, well, we can call. You know, when we feel guilty, we'll do anything. You know, just offer me something and I'll do it. Just anything to get you off my back. So I called this number, and 2 men came. And they were just beautiful men. They spoke to him. I came to know them later on. They told them about, well, they did exactly what's in the big book. They told him what happened to them. And they talked to him for a while, and then they said to me, we're going to take him home with us, or take him out with us. He'd like to come, and we're going to introduce him to some of these other men. So that's what they proceeded to do. And as they went out the door, they said, get rid of that bottle. He's not going to need it anymore. You don't need to wean him off on it. So they went out the door, and I went home, and I got rid of their bottle. And it was several years later. You know, we never know where we plant the seed. And several years later, I had acquired a husband. I'd acquired 3 little girls. And I had really progressed with my drinking. We'd had a party. We'd moved to Kingston. So it was a new city, and I'd had a blackout the night before at our initial party, and I just really didn't know what was going to happen. And I was terrified. And those 3 little girls were standing there, and I had went out and got a case of beer, a bottle of rum, and I'd called the only other man I knew in Kingston. I'd met him in a bar when I'd gone to see a psychiatrist, just to keep the doctors I worked with at that time happy. They thought maybe I was having too much stress. And I was, but not the way they understood it. But they somehow or other, when I wore a red hat into the case room, that did it. They really thought I had a problem, but I didn't realize it. And so the vision of those men, for some unknown reason, came to me. And I looked at the 3 little girls looking at me, in particular the oldest one with that look of "not again, Mummy." And I thought, I have to do something. And I remembered, and I went to the phone, and I thought, well, I don't think there'd be people like that in this city. It's, they were just starting in Toronto. But there was a number, and I called it, and they came to see me. Olga and her husband came, and she said, "We can't come until tonight. My husband's working." And I said, "I don't want you tonight, I want you now. I'll be bombed out of my mind when you get here." But they came at noon hour. He must have taken his lunch hour. From the beginning, what she said, I could identify. I wanted what she had. And ever since I've been here, I want what you have. I've tried to tell people they should come to this convention. It's so sad to see people who really are not prepared to come, and people who think, well, they can't afford it. It's amazing. A man a couple of weeks ago said there's a girl who's worked very hard. She's put herself through school. She's a single mom, and she says she just can't afford to go. He said, she needs to find where she's going to get some of the money, but please give her this. And he gave me half of the convention fare to pass to her. And I didn't know the girl, but I gave her the money. And I have never been to a convention where anyone who really wanted to come couldn't be here. Now, maybe I don't know, but anybody I've seen and anything I've heard, it's possible. We had a lot of concern about this one because they said that nobody could register for one day. But I still say come for the day if you can, or part of the day, and you'll still get something that you can take away with you. I went through about 3 months of struggle with my drinking and with my sobriety, trying to get sober. And because I had done a fair bit of binge drinking, the times I was sober were fine, but those temptations were rough. And my husband usually had a rum or two at night before dinner, and so that was difficult. And I have lived with alcohol in my house until I separated from my husband, and then I live with a brother who has his wine every night, and there's always wine on our dinner table. And but I don't have any question about it. I know I can't afford the first drink, and I thank those of you who've gone out again because you've saved me from doing it. I know that if I pick up that first drink, I have watched what you did, and I've seen what happened. Today, when I see someone go out again, I say, I want to know that I have questions I want to ask you. I have to know. Were you reading the big book? Did you have a group you belong to? Do you have a sponsor? Are you living a day at a time? I want to know all the things you were doing before. Were you easing off on meetings? I want to know what you did before you decided that you didn't want to, that you wanted to have that drink. And as I say, thank you, because you've saved me. The answers I've gotten is that nobody yet has told me, you better go out and try it, it's fun. We had a great time and we're just so happy. Well, I don't think that's what happens. Anyway, from the beginning, I wanted things. Now, there was only one meeting a week then in the city where I came in, of course. 2 women in the group. And so when there was a 12-step call, I certainly hadn't worked 12 steps, but from the beginning, I would get set to go, get a call, and away I'd go. And the kind of 12-step calls I made weren't always what they are today sometimes. I made one time where a man met me at the door with a big knife in his hand, and he just said, "She's in there." And I went in, talked to her, and hoped and prayed he didn't use the knife on both of us. And another time, there were just all kinds of calls, but we went, and there was rarely anyone to go with you. You just went. And eventually, my sponsor said to me, "I'm going to leave town, so you're going to take over the penitentiary group, Prison for Women." And I said, "Not me." She said, "Yes, you've gone with me, you know." I said, "No, I don't know. I didn't have to be in penitentiary." She said, "I hadn't either." But she said, "We can do it, and you're going to do it." And she said, "All you have to do is bake a cake on Thursday and take it in Thursday night for a discussion." Imagine doing that today. They're about as likely to let you through with a cake as a knife in your pocket. And then she said, "On Saturday, go to the bus terminal and meet the people who come down from Toronto, from Ottawa, from Oshawa, from Buffalo. They came from Syracuse, they came from everywhere. And they would come, the speakers would come down, and we would all meet the bus, and then the men would take the men to the men's penitentiaries. There's several in that area, and I would take the speaker for the women's penitentiary." And she said, "Just take them to the penitentiary and you listen." And that's exactly what I did. I heard so many good speakers. It was a real privilege. And I did that for 7 years. And I think that's the important thing, that the opportunities that we have in our sobriety are things that we really need to hang on to. When the first convention that came up, for the Ontario Regional Conference in Toronto, I saw that and I wanted to come. And I knew I could stay at my parents' house in Toronto here. And I thought, well, that'll work out fine. I think I can afford the fare for the convention. It wasn't that much in those days. But I went. And when I went in, I knew that at that point I was having seizures, but I hadn't told anyone I was having petit mal seizures. And I had had them for some time. And there were periods when I was listening to speakers when I would just black out. So when I went in, I saw some people and I introduced myself, shook their hand, as my sponsor told me to do. We didn't even call them sponsors then. And I said, "What are the 4 of you?" There's 4 of you. And it was Wynne from Hamilton, if any of you are from that area at all. If you know the reputation of her, even if she's gone. Wynne Donahue, she was a feisty old lady. And Dolly and Art Fraser, they're very kind people, and Mary. And the group of them said that this was their 5th conference, so it was getting to be old hat. And they were going to go shopping. And they said, "We just met Kay, and that was the end of it. We had to go to everything at that conference." I said, 2 of you go with that speaker, 2 of you come with me, and then I'll come to my room afterwards so you can tell me what you heard, and we'll tell you what we heard. And I was so afraid I'd miss something. I wanted to get everything that was there. So they did. That's what we did for the whole conference. And of course, I met them off and on through the years, and they were down to Kingston speaking too at the penitentiary. Anyway, that was the beginning of conferences, and I didn't miss an ORC until I retired and started going south. And the big conferences, these marvelous international, I started when I went to the one 65, where Bill gave us the responsibility pledge. And needless to say, and you have heard it and we felt it last night, that very, very moving situation of just knowing that this is a very, very real vow that I'm taking. And I'm very aware of it. And I know that anyone, anywhere reaches out for help. And that doesn't just mean another drunk. It means anyone, anywhere reaches out for help. And I've tried to do that as part of my living. And it's worked so far, and it works well. And that conference was, we were young and full of beans, and the girl who was with me, once we'd gotten the pledge and the meeting had closed with the final vow, the two of us got up and started dancing in the aisles and grabbing people's hands to dance with us. And everybody was singing and dancing. It was just great. We had a marvelous time. And it's those little things from conventions that have been important to me, the little things that I remember. The next convention was going to be in Miami. And we were working people, and we didn't have a lot. But we discovered that if we started to put a little bit away, every once in a while, if we had a few coins, we'd put them in a pot. And Kay and I talked about it. We went to the convention, we managed to get enough money together, and we went down to Miami. And down there, we had just such a good time, and we realized that the more people we could get to come to these, the better it was going to be. And at the end of the convention, we took a taxi back to our hotel, and the taxi driver said, I'd like to talk to you when you get out. And we thought, what's that about? So he said, nothing, so anyway, we got out and paid him and tipped him. And he said, I want to tell you something. We're a group of taxi drivers who come to Miami every winter, and then we go back up home in the summer. A lot of us from New York, and we go up to our families for the summer. These people, this group of taxi drivers, decided they'd come back down when we heard about this convention, because we know you're going to be a really happy, wound-up group. You're not going to vomit in our taxis. You're not going to drop your cigarette butts and going to find holes in our upholstery. You're going to have some gracious manners. You're going to care about each other. And if you say stop at a place, we'll stop and pick up another one if they're on the road. He went through a whole list of things and said, and so we all came back for this. And of course, being alcoholics, as we wandered away, we were thinking, wonder if we paid him and tipped him enough. But it was a real learning of another point of learning of how important it is that we consider other people, that we're not all within ourselves. Our party is not the whole biggest thing. Yesterday, while I was greeting over at the convention center, a man came along, an Oriental man, and he said, he had 2 or 3 people with him, and he said, what is this? And I said, it's a convention. And he said, oh, everybody's so happy. Can I get a ticket for it? I said, are you an alcoholic? He said, no. I said, well, I don't think you'd really be interested in us nuts. But he stood around and watched, and he may have been interested enough to go out and become one of us, I don't know. But, we just never know who we talk to and who we see and where we plant a seed, and our plants often for someone else. I can remember sitting one time talking to 2 men after a meeting in a restaurant, and really intent on getting these 2 men to understand the program. One of them came back years later. The other one drifted off someplace. But a man sitting in the booth beside me, I still see him at meetings every day. He's at many of the meetings I go to, and he's always so gracious and so kind, and he said, "I heard what you said, and I wanted what you had." I have a little sponsee in St. Paul who calls it never enoughers, and that's what I was afraid when I came here. I thought I didn't have enough for you. I thought I wasn't good enough for you, that you wouldn't want me there. When I looked at the group who were there, they looked so old, and well, I don't think they looked so old to me as much as they looked so wise. They looked as if they had it all together, and I was in such a state. And they didn't seem to be shaking the way I did. There were other things, and I guess that from the beginning was one of the things that I just was so afraid you wouldn't want me. Even when you gave me the 20 questions, I went down and said, and I could identify with most of them. I'd say, yes, that's me, that's me, that's me. And I got to that 20th question that said, have you ever been in an institution as a result of drinking? And I thought, that's the catch question. If I answer yes to that one, then they're really going to know I'm nuts and they don't want me here. So I thought, so I said, no, I haven't done that one. So, and then I read down, if you've answered yes to one, maybe two, you probably are, and three, there's not much doubt about it. And I thought, now I've told them 16 things about myself I didn't have to tell them, and now they're really not going to want me. See things so wrongly. And Kay and I, after we went to that Miami conference, we just had such a great time, and we thought other people should have a chance too. So we got together and we talked about it, and a third girl came in with us, and we started. And we booked an airline because the next one was going to be in Denver. And I had been, I pulled every whistle stop I could find because I wanted to get everything I could. And I have a grandson here today who has that same kind of curiosity. That's why he's working on his doctoral now. And we wanted to find out what we could do. So we managed to book a plane for Denver a couple of years ahead of time. We started talking to people and telling them if they put down payments, and then we'd get it in payments until the full amount had been paid. And and we managed to book the plane, and we booked a hotel in Denver. And in my interest in everything from the beginning, because I spent a lot of time alone at night and things, because I was nursing nights and nursing any shift I could after I sobered up, we'd take I started just writing to people and asking when I went to these conventions in Toronto here, trying to find people that I could correspond with. And Dick Caron from Caron Treatment Center, long gone now. Oh, the treatment center's still there, but Dick is gone. Gave me the name of a woman in Denver that I could correspond with. And so I kept in touch with her. And when the Denver conference came along, we had been corresponding for 24 years. And we got everybody to that conference. And, it was later that we were 24 years, it was our anniversary. But anyway, we went to Denver, and they had a great big basket of fruit in our room. And they came in she came in to tell me that they were all coming back to get us. We got this whole plane load of people to Denver in this hotel.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom?
And she said a whole group of her people were coming that night to take us out to their home for the meeting. And they took us out to a home in the hills in Colorado. And we just had a fabulous meeting, standing around in this log home built of cedar logs, a beautiful place, and held hands in a circle. And we had other people there, and we just thought, the power in that room of the two of us corresponding for years, never seeing each other, and suddenly were all there together in one room. And that carried on for the whole convention. We were out in the hills with them looking at the whole natural emporium in the hills. At one point, Davy T and his wife from Oshawa, some of you know, we were all out on this stone stage that was part of this theater, natural theater, and we started doing a can-can. People came along and said, asking other members of our group, was this the rehearsal and what time would the show be tonight? And we had a great time just cutting up out there. And even today I have a picture of myself doing a yoga headstand on the top of a mountain. Just because you get sober doesn't say you get sane. And that whole conference was just great, you know. And there were the people, the speakers that I always took notes that I could take home. I wanted to hear what was said, and I wanted to have that to take home with me. And that conference started a trend, and the next time was in New Orleans. And so we booked a hotel on the main street, and we talked the staff into supplying coffee. The swimming pool was on the top floor, so we talked them into leaving the swimming pool open all night and leaving coffee up there. And it was the greatest place to go and just sit with people. You know, I say the speakers are the icing on the cake at the conventions, but the real solid cake is the people who sit next to you, the people you meet having a coffee in the coffee shop. And it's really interesting. That's the number of people that I met through the years, and with Kay, different people that we stopped, because we stopped and talked to everybody. And we had a great time. And that one, we'd go out to hear a whole bunch would go out to hear the people at Preservation Hall, beautiful black singers and their old orchestra. Those were the gifts that were all extras, but they were all part of the whole thing of living sober and knowing that life doesn't have to be a drag just because you're sober. And went on from there, from New Orleans, to the next one was I've got to see somewhere, I wrote it down, to the conference in, let's see, what was after that? That's the one I wanted to talk about. I don't want to talk about it right now. Montreal was the conference I had to miss. And I had to miss it because I made a 12-step call. And then I went on. From there on, we went on to Seattle. And from there to San Diego, and from there to Minneapolis, right, and then to Toronto. So that each of those conferences have carried something special. There have been special events that happen. That's the notes I have as the conferences. That's all I brought. But each of them had something special. In Seattle, I was on my way up to Alaska on a cruise, and on my way through Seattle, I called them and said, "We're coming for a convention next year. Make sure you've got lots of coffee on." And when we got to Seattle, they had that pipe all the way around, and you could take your coffee to the pipe and turn the tap on and fill your coffee. Is that right? Those of you who were there? It was great. And San Diego, the things we did there, you know, we were up in the hot air balloon over some of the Janet Jackson and a few other people's homes. And that whole experience of going up in that balloon, I was with a girl I'd never met before. She was assigned to me as a roommate, and we just had a great time together. We got to know each other and were able to share a lot of things that, just things we hadn't done. And that hot air balloon, she was not going to go up in it. She didn't want to try it. I was always willing to try almost anything. And we did that. And there's a lot of things in tackling something that you haven't done before that you get up the courage finally to go ahead and try. Just the same as with sobriety, when you get up to speak for the first time, or you go on your first 12-step call, all those things that are really frightening when you first think of them. And then you go. Today I felt like that because I felt I had some very, very clever men around here speaking before and after me, and I said, you know, I'm my friend from, my little gal from St. Paul's, I'm never nuffers, I don't have as much as those people, and on and on. And even when I turned to reach my 50th anniversary, I said, I was on a cruise with Father Tom and Annie, and I said to Father Tom, you know, I need to talk to you because I don't want to be sober 50 years because people will think I know things, and I don't know what I should know. He said, there's an alternative. And I said, no, I don't want to do that. So we got the 50, and it's worked so far. And I still don't know that much. I'm still learning. I'm still hearing things that are great. And in the Minneapolis conference was so special because I have a sponsee there, and I have other friends who are from AA, and people that I had met. Now that I'm sober, I go to Florida for 6 months. And I have a group of people from Minneapolis that I meet down there, and they come, and they've gone through a very, very sad time. But they, you know, if you have any prayers, please say prayers for them because it was rough. The one couple I had seen this man out on the beach flying a kite, and I went up to him. You know, we're everywhere. I went up to him and I said, I just want to stand and watch you. And I did, because I love to watch the kites. There's something special about them. And his wife came out, and the three of us started to talk, and I said, do you walk the beach down around 77th Street? And he said, yes. I said, oh, have you got a white dress with a picture hat and a red ribbon on the hat? And she said, yes. I said, oh, I have a painting I did of you. And I had done a painting of the two of them walking along the beach, striding along with her dress floating in the wind and the birds around them and everything. And I gave them that picture, and they came back to me later and told me that it was above their mantelpiece. And I didn't even know that he was in AA at that time. And then she developed cancer, and it was people came down to Florida to visit with them when they were down there, and I became acquainted with more and more of them. And I think that that's the important thing of reaching out. No matter where we go, there are people. Particularly now that I do go south, there are people from all over who are there are people at this convention that I've been hearing from the beginning, emails saying I'm coming and different things that are happening, places we can meet, you know, and you never quite make it. They said I would be at gate 7 last night, and people went looking for me there, and I'm at gate 5. You know, you just never know where you're going to turn up. But I don't want to babble on here forever. I think the important thing, if I don't share anything else with you, I'd say, you know, after this convention, take some of the special little bits home with you for memory, but share them with people in your groups, because it's the greatest opportunity in the world. And it's not just an opportunity for getting, I guess, just not the social end of it. The meetings themselves, there isn't a meeting. I said, there's no sense my talking on 12 steps and 12 traditions. There are such marvelous speakers over there at all the different panels, and people speaking on every aspect of AA. And when you select the ones you want, as most of you have probably done, then you go and hear those things and have the bits and pieces to take home. I always went home with reams of notes afterwards. And if somebody lost a pamphlet where they took a lot of notes today, I picked it up I think it has something on the top of it that might identify. But because it has the notes, I wouldn't like you to lose it. I thought it was from something. Well, there's an article about the Yellow Brick Road anyway, and and someone has made the notes on it, so they're probably notes you wanted to take with you, so I've got it if you need it. The Montreal conference, I was all set to go. Now, my family tree was watered, but not watered with alcohol, it was watered with liquor. I think everybody in my one branch of my family has had a problem with alcohol or has almost had sober adult women. One of them eventually became an Al-Anon woman. My grandsons grew up in AA. They went to Alateen and eventually Al-Anon. I was all set to go to the Montreal conference. It's the only one I've missed. And I was packed. I'll take the calls and I'll book any appointments for next week or whatever. And the phone rang. And it was just about at this time, 20 years ago, the Montreal conference. And the phone rang, and I looked at my receptionist and she nodded, and I said I should take it. She said yes. I picked it up, and it was my daughter. And I said, "Where are you, Di?" She said, "Well," I said, "aren't you down the Thousand Islands on holidays?" She said, "No, we're outside Toronto. Peter wants to talk to you." Peter's my son-in-law, who I have personalities, and gone through hitting the bottom of the pit for him. He had had seizures, and he had had a lot of things that are his story, but he was ready to talk. And so I went out to my car, loaded to go to Montreal, and as I told someone today, I just said, "Well, Bill and Dr. Bob, would you go to Montreal and celebrate 50 years of AA, or would you make a 12-step call?" "Okay, guys, I'm going." So I made the 12-step call and spent the weekend with Peter, who didn't want to do anything I suggested, and didn't want to go to a meeting that night, and we finally got to one at the beginning of the week. But he has run his program his way, and he has just about now, I made the 12-step call, and Peter is sober 20 years today. And I think he's here. Where are you, Peter? He should be here. Okay, they were coming. They were coming for 12:15. Anyway, he should be here because I'm going to have the privilege of presenting his 20-year medallion very shortly. But that's the joy of this. Peter listens to a lot of tapes. If you've spoken in AA, he can probably tell you. And he has a collection that he just can tell me people that I can't even remember. But he knows who they are, and he can tell me what they talked about. So I say to you, if you really want this program, it's here for you. If you're having any trouble, when I went after that great time we had in New Orleans, I was standing at the end of the conference, with my badge and everything still on, standing with several people outside of one of the music halls. And we were listening to music inside. And I got what I call a God prod. There was a man standing next to me, and I turned and said, "How are you?" He said, "Fine." And I said, "No, how are you really?" And I don't know whether Marty's here, but Marty always teases me about that and gives it back to me, "How are you really?" He said, "Terrible." And so I talked for a minute, and I said, "Let's go and have a coffee." So we went to have a coffee, and we talked. And he told me that he was gay, and this is 20 years, this is, 19 what year? New Orleans, 1980. No, sorry. 1980. And he told me he was gay and that he had come and he'd met a group, but he didn't feel that comfortable with them. His sponsor was coming with him, and he had died the month before. And he said, it's just been a dreadful session. But he said, at least I'm going home now. And when I said, well, among other things, said, when you get home, be sure to write me. There was no email or anything then. So I said, be sure to write me and let me know. He got home, and he said, the fact that someone cared enough to even stop to have a coffee with me was important. And that's not a credit to me. That's what Bill gave me. I am responsible. And it's those kind of things that have happened to me all through the years, the people that I've met. I can tell stories on and on and on about these sort of things. And when I look around here, and I can't see most of you because of the lighting, but there are a number of you here that have woven in and out of my life, and I know that my program is the warp of my weaving, that it creates some of the basis, and the woof creates the pattern, because you people are what put these threads through that give me that beautiful, beautiful piece that I can look at that's called sobriety. And I get that as a gift from you. And so I'm eternally grateful to you. And there are people, I could take each one of you that I know who are here and tell something precious about you. There's eventually, AA gave me the ability to go back to university. I went back and finished a Bachelor of Science of Nursing, and then I did criminology because I had originally wanted law or journalism. And by the time I got through criminology, I decided I didn't want to go on with law. And then I took journalism, I took a lot of artwork, and eventually I did my master's in science of education. And then I was going to do a doctorate, and I thought, what do I want to do a doctorate for? Who am I going to impress? It would be my 60s when I got through. And by that time I was doing clowning. I was a clown. My clown name is Saggy Aggie the Bag Lady. And I was thoroughly enjoying clowning. And the whole concept of what I have in AA and my nursing combined makes me the clown that I am, and I'm a professional clown. And next month I'll be meeting and greeting buses and up in the lobby over here across the road at Roy Thompson Hall. And Sheila, my friend down here, does volunteer ushering there, and she makes a point of booking for a day that I'm there. And so I have that kind of support. And there are a lot of AA people come to that concert. It's a 5-day concert for 55 plus, so there are a bunch of older people performing, very talented people, and it's a great, great fun show. But that whole business of clowning, I decided, well, I don't want the doctorate, I'm just going to go on with my clowning. And that has been a really important thing because it's been part of everything. At the first all-Canadian conference that we had out in the Maritimes, the one night I decided what I'd do. There were so many children there that I'd dress up and go upstairs, just take the children up. And we just had a marvelous time. But when I went in, they stopped me at the door and they said, you can't come in here. Madame Sauvé, our Governor General, is going to be here, and the mounted police are going to be around, and they're going to prevent you from doing anything. I said, I'm not going down to Madame Sauvé, I'm going to the important kids. And so went up with the kids and had a great time. And it's that kind of thing. I've met people that way too, that have been in AA or that need AA or want AA. I've clowned for parties where I've being able just to meet someone that eventually came to AA. The opportunities are there all the time. We're given one of the greatest gifts in the world, that we have a message we can carry. I thank God that people had the patience, the love, and the time to spend with me to help me get sober, because I was not easy. I had all the questions to ask. You know, from the time I was little, I asked questions. My parents sent me to a convent. Since there was no preschool then, they had me go to a group that one of the sisters had. And I said, it's a great place for a Presbyterian to learn things about catechism. But I asked so many questions, they just couldn't cope with me because I had a brother who needed attention too. So from the beginning, I've asked questions. And you know, if you're having problems, I really want to say, turn to somebody. There's somebody here who can help you. I'm not the person probably, but there's someone here who has walked that walk. There's nothing that ever happens to us in AA that hasn't happened to someone else, that someone else can't identify with you. And just don't bottle it. It's so easy. I've done it so many times and then really been in trouble. This morning when I got up, I thought, oh my God, I've got to go and speak today. And then I realized, you know, it wasn't really up to me. I went in my room and had a quick talk with my man upstairs. First thing I knew, one of the members of my group who's been with me right from the beginning of this conference, Mary, beautiful Irish Mary, you'll meet her here. She called and said she was coming down today. And I have my friend Mary Lou here from Chicago, and I thought, I was a little leery driving Mary Lou down. I was a little absent-minded, and I thought, I'm not so sure I'm going to do such a good job of the driving today, and I'm not sure we're going to get through the dark night. And but God looked after it. Next thing I knew, Mary was on the phone saying, yes, I'm going to go down today. Are you going to stay all day, Mary? Yes, I'm going to stay till tonight. You know, it works. If we let go, we said, where are we going to park getting down here? Pulled across the road to where I park every time for my clowning. And went in, and there's the guys on the desk that I already know. And there's my friend Herb there from way back in the years of Peter coming in, and the group that Peter came into, and his mother with him, who's been here for longer than some of you. And but anyway, it's a good program. So when you go out of here and you see someone you don't know, turn and shake their hand. Introduce yourself, and you may have a friend for life. That's what it is. And I close with, don't walk ahead of me, I cannot follow. Don't walk behind, I cannot lead. Walk beside me, hold my hand, be my friend. Thank you, and God bless.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Kay. Just a reminder, the CDs and cassettes for all the speakers for today are for sale or for order in the back. And we'll be taking about a 30-minute break. At 1:30, we'll be coming back with Mel B., who'll be sharing with us. Just so you also know, Mel has some of his books and things also for sale in the foyer if you're interested. So we'll see you in about 30 minutes.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Caper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.